All right. Shalom, people. How's it going? Chuck Holton here. And it's a nice night out, actually. We are right at the end of Shabbat. It's about 6 p.m. on Saturday, December 2nd. And I am here in Jerusalem. I've spent the day, we went down with Connie and I to visit some new friends that we've made through the podcast here. We went down to a place called Efrat, which is a settlement in the West Bank area, right near Bethlehem, actually overlooking Bethlehem, and had a great lunch with them. Just a fine family, some great Americans, and now Israeli Americans, Jewish Americans. We really enjoyed that. Learned a lot about the whole issue of the quote unquote settlements in what the world calls the West Bank and what Christians call Judea and Samaria. Very, very interesting conversation over this lunch we had. And so it was a great, restful day. And I wanted to just give you an update because I know there's a lot of people waiting for it. Good morning, everybody from Australia. We got people from, holy cow, all over the world. Korea, Alaska, North Carolina, just all over the place. That is really, really cool. And what's also cool to me is how many people here in Israel are actually watching my broadcasts. And I'm really humbled by that. I often get messages from you guys here in Israel explaining things that I get wrong, chastising me for saying things wrong, but very grateful for all of the support and even the constructive criticism. I do appreciate that. And so let's get to it. Thank you, 1999. Did you have a question? We've got a couple people already donating here. After hearing all those children playing in the background, would you be willing to buy them some candies? Well, I would love to do that. And I'll tell you what, I will. They are staying in this hotel right next door over here. This is the Cassia Hotel. It used to be I'm going to try to keep my voice going. I got a couple hours of TV to do yet tonight. The Cassia Hotel is a nice hotel, and they are they're completely full, housing internally displaced people, mostly from the north. I mentioned last night we went and spent some time at a different hotel with Michelle Bachman, and as we were sitting in the lobby talking, a lady walked over and said, "I just want to tell you that you all look like movie stars, and I just feel like I need to come and meet you." And so we got talking to her, and she was a sweet, sweet lady from the north, and she had been pushed out of her home because of the fighting. And she's like, this is a luxury hotel, but I just would much rather be in my own bed. And I'm like, I know how that feels. I spend the majority of my year in hotels around the world. I haven't counted up yet this year, but last year I spent more than 200 nights away from my home, and only about 30 nights in my own bed. And that's just not enough. And I keep saying I'm going to not travel so much and stay home, but they keep having wars, dadgummit. What am I supposed to do here? It's, it's my job. So instead of going and sleeping in my own bed, I come and sleep in an Airbnb someplace and bring my wife over here. So at least I don't have to be away from my family the whole time. And I'm hoping at the end of the year to be able to spend a little bit of time in Panama. I got to get back in shape. I got a whole bunch of, video projects that I'd like to. I'm one of those guys that I really like working on these kind of projects. I like the creative process of video making and that sort of thing. So I don't, follow sports or anything like that. I just do my job. And I'm very, very fortunate that I like my job. I'm passionate about my job, and I feel like I'm doing good by doing my job. So I just do my job, and that's my pastime. If I need a vacation, if I need to off gas, I just go home and shut off the phone and play with the monkeys and the dogs, and kind of spend as much time outside as possible. Question: what's the status of Iran and their nuclear weapons? Salem wildfire. Nobody really knows what the status is of Iran and their nuclear weapons. We know that they're close. We know that they're trying to get over the threshold and become a nuclear state. That is not going to be a good day if they're able to do that, because they have said that they plan to drop the first bomb they make on Tel Aviv. And that's... I said yesterday, if your enemy says that he's going to do something to you and he has the wherewithal to do it, then you should believe him and you should react accordingly. That's the only logical way to react to something like that. And so if Iran says they're going to drop a nuclear bomb on Tel Aviv and they get a nuclear bomb, then Israel is going to have to strike first. Hopefully they can make a targeted strike and only take out the nuclear bomb. But we don't want to. I am more and more worried all the time that this world is going to come to a point where some idiot pushes a button and uses a nuclear bomb. I don't think that that's super likely from the normal actors, the United States, Russia, things like that. Do you want to bring her here? Let's see. Hey, what you got?
I'm engaged.
What? Okay. My daughter just called. She's engaged. She just found out she's engaged.
Congratulations, honey. Yay.
There's only a couple thousand people watching. No big deal.
Welcome to the family, Mark.
Mark.
Oh,
So Snapperhead finally got off his. Yeah. Okay. There he is. He's not gonna be Snapperhead anymore.
Oh,
So congratulations to Amy.
honey.
She just got engaged. We just found out that she's in Virginia, and well, praise the
let me
Lord.
see it, let me
Okay.
see it.
All
Okay,
right.
okay.
Good for you. That's great. Fantastic. You just found out in real time when I found out. So I guess that makes you all family too. That's great. Makes me very, very happy. Amy's beau is a young man who, if you've watched my movie, Armenia, A Love Story. Okay, I'll get to that, Phoenix. If you watch my movie, Armenia, A Love Story, Mark and Amy are the main characters in the movie. And it took a couple years to film the movie, but they were just friends. And we'd made like 4 or 5 trips to Armenia, and that we were filming all the time, and they were just hanging out together a lot. Just good friends. There was nothing there. And I guess over the last year or so, that's changed a little bit. And Mark is a very, very bright young man. He is will be a very great addition to our family. I'm really happy about that. So thanks for all your congratulations. I appreciate that. Now, I think somebody was asking there whether the United States is backing away from Israel. I would say as a government, yes, they are. As a people, yes. Not all of us, obviously. There's still a lot of people in the United States who love Israel and who bless Israel. There's a verse. If you don't know this verse, I make the I'm wrong to make the assumption that everybody who watches this show happens to be a Bible believing Christian and understand the Bible. So if you don't understand where that comes from, why are Christians so supportive of Israel? Well, there's a chapter in Genesis chapter 12, and this is God's promise to Abraham when he gave him that promise. Actually, we went and saw the mountain where this promise happened the other day. That was amazing. You can go watch it on my locals page. Go to chuckholton.locals.com. You can see that. But the promise that God gave to Abraham is that I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. And to him who dishonors you, I will curse. And in you, all the families of the world shall be blessed. So there's one of the first promises in the Bible where we first learn about Abraham and the fact that God intends to make of him a great nation that will be his chosen people. And God says to Abraham, I will bless those who bless you, and of those who dishonor you I will curse. And the entire world will be blessed through you. So this is the reason why Christians believe that it's our duty to bless Israel. Now, to be perfectly frank with you, Israel's not my favorite place in the world. There's some amazing history here, and I love the history. It's unbelievable to see the Bible come to life. Wait, hey, I want to show you. Let's see if I can do this here. All these kids playing down here. We're going to go give candy to a little later because Ken just gave candy. Let's see, where are they? They're over there. See all the kids playing around down there? These are all refugee kids, internally displaced from the border areas of Israel. And they're living in this very nice hotel right here. But, like I say, a very nice hotel still can get pretty boring when you're a kid. And when you don't have the, purpose that you have when you're at home. So I'm trying not to be too ADD here, but there's just stuff happening, and I wanted to show you while it's happening. And so let me get back to what I was talking about. Christians believe that we should bless Israel, but I don't personally like Israel all that much. I mean, not just being here. Why? Because it's there's something about the culture here, and I'll explain what I think it is in a minute, but it makes me feel like I am always doing something very wrong. Everywhere I go, there's rules, because it's a very Jewish culture. I didn't grow up in a Jewish culture, and so I don't know all the rules. And it's just like, it's so exhausting to, you can't push that button, you can't go there, you can't do that, you have to wash your hands this way, you can't, and I'm not criticizing it at all. I'm just saying that because I didn't grow up in a culture like that, it's overwhelming. Not to mention the fact that Israel has become a real nanny state. They've been sliding down the woke slide for a long time, and I wouldn't say they have reached the end of it yet, but everywhere you go there are cameras, and I make a habit of getting a speeding ticket or two in pretty much every country I visit, but this place is off the chain, man. I mean, with the cameras, just cameras everywhere. And so when I'm driving, I'm always like, like trying so hard not to get a ticket, and I get them anyway. You just can't help it. I was trying to find a parking space here when I first got here, and I brought my rental car down, and there was nowhere to park, so I went around the block, and I bet, this is no joke, there's no exaggeration, I bet I got 6 tickets just driving around the block here, because there's a bus lane in the middle, and you can't go in the bus lane, but then the bus is actually over on the right. So its lane is over here, and so I go around the bus, and I ended up in the bus lane, and there's cameras flashing everywhere, and I'm trying to, I'm making a turn, and well, you can't make a right turn on red, and so that's like everywhere you go. A lot of it, I feel more like that the more I drive. If I don't drive so much, I feel better. But I'm just giving you a sense of the real life of this is context for you of what it's like to be staying here. It's one thing. I've been here a couple times on tours, and you get on the bus and you just ride along and you get to see everything. You have a guy to explain everything to you. But when you're just living here and you're just trying to make it, it's overwhelming. It's a lot. Okay, so question. Let's try to answer some of these questions. I don't know if it's the same person asking the question over and over again. Can you hand me my glasses, babe? Oops. Could the distance that the USA is starting to put between itself and Israel be the start of what it says in Ezekiel 38 about in the end times Israel does not have any allies to help? Well, I suppose it could. Well, yeah, Alon, Israel might have cameras everywhere, but that's to look for terrorists. A lot of those cameras are not actually traffic cameras, but I don't know which ones are and which ones aren't. And when the little red light flashes at me and when I go by, and I'm like, oh, I hate speed camera. Like, pull me over and write me a ticket any day. But speed cameras, I can't stand. I hate those things, man, because they just boom, you're done. It's one shot, one kill. Question. Do you follow the nature current events like earthquakes, volcanoes, etc.? I did see there was a big earthquake in I think the Philippines today, 6.8 just now. And so yes, I do follow lots of natural disasters because I report on natural disasters. So yeah, I do. I get things on my phone. Speaking of things on my phone, I've had a ton of red alerts today. A ton of them. A ton. Like, there have been a lot of rockets fired out of Gaza. Two of them it came toward Jerusalem last night. We didn't get an alarm here because they didn't get anywhere super close to us, but we heard the explosions when they detonated. And we found out today when we went down to Bethlehem that they had landed, I think, between us and Bethlehem, if I'm not mistaken, because the people that we had lunch with were saying that they heard it very clearly, heard the explosions. But think about that now. That was about 15 to 20 kilometers away from us, and we heard the explosions. So when you hear people on the news in a war zone saying, we're hearing explosions now, and that doesn't tell you anything, especially when they say very loud explosions. I hate that. That you can hear explosions from 20 miles away. And so it suffice it to say, these missiles came from Gaza, all the way from Gaza toward Jerusalem, and landed short. Nobody was injured. I wanted to get to the topic of tonight. What are the directional markings in the tunnels? Probably, so they have lots of different kinds of tunnels in Gaza. They have like traveling tunnels, which will take you long distances. They have fighting tunnels, which will take you to fighting positions. And they have storage tunnels, all different sorts of things. I would say that the arrows probably point to the center rather than out to the end of the tunnel. So if you want to find another tunnel, you follow the arrows in there. I could be wrong about that, but that's a guess. Okay. Did you cover the tsunami in Japan? No, I was actually busy on another emergency. I forget which one. I forget where I was. I was in maybe Afghanistan when that happened. And so I didn't actually cover the tsunami in Japan. Would have liked to have been there, but can't be everywhere. Okay, notifications of the bombings. I used Shofar, TZOFAR. TZOFAR. That's what I'm using. Have I had a chance to speak to Joel Rosenberg? Not lately. I've done a couple book signings with him, but I haven't spoken with him lately. So, the civilian problem. Let's talk about the civilian problem now. I'm going to stop answering these questions for a few minutes and cover this because I have to keep an eye on the time. I've got another live to do at the top of the hour. Those kids are having a great time down there. Israel has the biggest problem Israel faces in Gaza is not Hamas. It's the civilians. And that's because Hamas is not a uniformed military per se. Hamas is a regional government. They are a terror group. They have no problem at all using people in civilian clothes. If you look at the videos from the 7th of October, most of those guys were in, maybe like a pair of camouflage pants or something like that. But they weren't fully in a uniform, meaning they were all dressed the same. They pretty much were all dressed different. They might have been in some sort of military garb, but they were all dressed differently. And I was watching some videos today that just came out of Gaza, and I was struck by these were the sites of some airstrikes that had happened, or some strikes that had happened. I'm not positive if they were airstrikes on some buildings in Gaza, and there were a bunch of guys like gathered around yelling. You've seen these videos. These guys are like, they're all gathering around. They're jumping up and down and waving their arms, and they're very upset and everything. But I was looking around and I was like, there's an awful lot of military-age males in Gaza, and all these guys are wearing civilian clothes. And any one of those guys, or maybe all of them, could be Hamas affiliated. I don't think it's possible because of the iron fist that Hamas used to rule Gaza. I don't think it's possible that a guy could not be affiliated with Hamas in the Gaza Strip anytime in the last couple of years or more. And that poses a real problem for Israel, because as their rules of engagement state, if there are civilians around in a structure, they cannot bomb it. Now, that was what we were told by the lawyer, and that was on the record but off camera. We were told that their rules of engagement specifically state that they cannot attack a building if there are civilians present. But that's probably not completely the case. And this may go to part of the reason why the IDF won't let journalists come in there with them, is that they may be bending the rules a little bit, their own rules, and they may be doing it because they absolutely have to, because there's just no way that they can accomplish what they plan to do by wiping out Hamas under their own rules of engagement. I think their ROE has hamstrung them. They're trying to prosecute this war with at least one hand tied behind their back. And that makes it just a foregone conclusion that they're going to have to bend the rules in order to be effective. So if the rule states that that you cannot bomb a building if there's a civilian anywhere near that building, then Hamas knows that. They weaponize that against you, and they just get civilians put their own guys in civilian clothes and have them go be visible, wander around the street outside our headquarters, and they cannot bomb our headquarters. But I've heard some things today, doing some research, that they actually have a more kind of a sliding scale based on the military necessity of the target, the immediacy of the target, and the potential threat to Israel by the target. They have a sliding scale, like a +5 or something. Like if there's up to 5 civilians in the target, then we can still go ahead and bomb it. They're trying to put a value on the military necessity of what they're doing vis-a-vis the human lives in Gaza. And it's a very, very difficult place to be. It's a serious problem. If they deviate and say, well, we have to win, we've got to kill some civilians because they're wandering around in the way. They won't get out of the way. They're going to get crucified in the information battle space because they were killing civilians. And that's indeed what we're seeing. If they say, we're going to make it very clear and let everybody see that we will not kill a civilian at all, ever, for any reason, they lost the war already because Hamas wanders around in civilian clothes. So they're going to have to make a choice. And this is a difficult problem, and it's a problem, the pressure of which is increasing. The pressure on Israel to stop their fighting in Gaza is not going to lessen. It's only going to extrapolate. I mean, it's going to increase by a factor of something every day that this thing goes on. There's going to be an exponential increase in the pressure on Israel to stop the fighting once they move into the south. And I believe they are actually moving into the south as we speak. And they're going to try to crack both of those nuts at the same time, because, and they might not have done that otherwise, but because of the pressure that's being put on them, they are saying we've got to throw off all the stops and we've got to get this done, because there's going to come a point where the United States just walks away from us. And they know that day is coming. It's been telegraphed by the Biden administration. And if the United States completely drops support for Israel, or even worse, starts supporting the Palestinians more, and we already are. You realize, if you go back and watch some of my previous lives, we've talked about this. We are paying for, the United States, taxpayers, you and me, we are paying for both sides of this conflict. We are sending ammunition to Israel, and we are sending aid and comfort to Hamas, and money and cash. We're just sending them cash. As Israel has been pushing into Gaza, it has become more and more clear that all the money that we've been pumping into Gaza through the UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, and other organizations, all of the money that we've been pumping in there has been going to prop up Hamas, has been going to not just pay people who committed terror acts, but incentivize people to commit more. That's U.S. taxpayer dollars in the hundreds of millions of dollars every year is going to encourage and facilitate terror inside Gaza, inside Israel, and the West Bank. And that is a provable fact. That is happening. And what the administration tries to do is say, we're not giving money for terror, we're giving money for food. We give money for food. Oh yeah, so then they don't, you give them $300 million for food. That's $300 million they don't have to spend on food, that they can take from other sources and spend on ammo. Stupid. Come on. People just, the government doesn't get, I don't believe that. They don't understand that money's fungible. I don't believe that. They know what is happening. And I'm starting to come to the belief that in some sense they want it to happen. They want to pressure Israel. They want to put so much pressure on Israel that Israel is going to have to go into the West Bank and kick out 500,000 Israelis and let Arabs come live in their homes. Now, I'll tell you right now, especially after talking to the people that I talked to today, that's not going to happen. And if it is going to happen, it's going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be really, 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 really bad. Because the people who live in there, who have built their lives in there, who have made their, stand, they have paid a heavy price to live where they live. They're telling me that today, if you want to, because a lot of that land it belongs to Israel, and it essentially is government land. In the C zones is government land, and that government land, it's like if you go to Nevada and you get outside the city limits, they're just wide open desert as far as you can see. That's just government land. Nobody owns it. If you live on the East Coast, you'd be hard pressed to find any place that isn't owned by somebody. But on out west where I grew up, you just go outside the city limits. This is all government land out there, and a farmer might lease it or something, but it's all belongs to the government. Here in Israel, the government land, there's a lot of open land. Actually, you might be surprised if you've never been to Israel, but if you come here, and if you're an Israeli and you are looking for a place to live, you can go find a piece of that government land, and there's a process if you want to live on it. First you have to set up like a tent, and you have to, camp out there, and then you build like a house trailer, and you camp out there. And we're talking like not for a day, not for a week, not for a month. We're talking 3, maybe 5 years. You've got to live in a trailer on that property, a temporary structure, not a full-time structure. And by the time it gets to the point where you can actually call it your own and build a house and all that, you're talking 8 years, and somebody has to have been on that property like pretty much the whole time. Those people pay a price, and they pay taxes. They are getting building permits. They're legally annexing government land and building on it, and they have these beautiful, clean, safe communities with like-minded people, very homogenous. And the Biden administration wants Israel to go into those, it's about 500 communities, 350 maybe, something like that, communities, 500,000 people, and push them out of their homes and force them to leave, and then give that money or give that land and the houses and everything to the Arabs. Now, before October 7th, that's been tried. Even the Jews have tried to give that land to the Arabs and say, here's your property. You call this Palestine, call it whatever you want, just leave us alone. And the Arabs wouldn't accept it. They said, no, we want everything. We want all of Israel. And we want the Jews to all die. You can't reason with somebody like that. And so they're like, fine, then we're going to come live here. The Biden administration is continuously pushing and pushing and pushing Israel to make life harder on those settlers out in the West Bank. Those settlers are not wandering around with we were out there today. Those guys were armed when we went out for a walk, and I understand why. I didn't feel the least bit uncomfortable with them being armed, because I come from West Virginia and everybody's armed. It's not a big deal. I'm armed most of the time. And so there was nothing dangerous about that. But they're not wandering around looking for an Arab to kill. That's just not happening. And there are there's a couple of places I was told down in Hebron where there are some kind of extreme Jews who are going a little overboard with the whole, starting a militia kind of thing and that sort of thing. But they're in the south of Israel, and they just watched what happened on October 7th. What would you expect them to be doing? What would you be doing if you lived in a small village with 1,000 people in it, and they just had more people than 3 times more people than live in your village break through the fence near where you live and murder 10% of all the people in the villages around you? Would you be saying, well, it's fine? Or would you be preparing for war? Would you be arming up every way you can? Well, that's what they're doing. They're doing what is absolutely logical in this situation. But again, that whole thing just is a very big problem when you move into Gaza and you see what the Israelis are having to contend with. We saw video of the Israelis going into, they said, if we want to find weapons, we just have to find a place where there are children. And sure enough, there'll be weapons there. And there was a video that came out today. I'm not going to be showing a bunch of videos on this live, because what I have found is if I show a video from the IDF, YouTube demonetizes the video. And so I'm going to put the videos that I talk about on my website, chuckholton.locals.com, or now you can just go to chuckholton.com and it'll take you there. But I'm going to start putting the videos up over there and not putting the videos on this thing because I don't want to get the video demonetized. The IDF showed a video today where they went into a house, and in the house they found a room that was stacked with aid from UNRWA. So UN aid partially paid for by the American taxpayer. And they moved the boxes out, and there was a whole bunch of missiles, rockets laid out underneath the boxes of aid. This is what they're finding. It's not like they can go into Gaza and just sort of, with precision go around and we're going to find this army base for Hamas. We're going to find this, headquarters for Hamas. We're going to blow those things up. We're going to leave everything else intact. The entire Gaza Strip is a giant military base with 2.5 million people just milling around all over the military base. It's like if you brought the entire population of Fort Bragg, and I know it's not called Fort Bragg anymore, but I refuse to, I'm not going to play that stupid game. If you took the entire population of Fayetteville, North Carolina, and just had them move on to Fort Bragg, and people just milling about, doing their thing just everywhere, it's like if you were to spread butter and margarine together on the same piece of bread and then say, okay, now only take off the butter. You just can't do it. It's just not possible. And that is what the IDF is running into in Gaza right now. It's not a cool thing. It's a big, big problem. Okay, answer a couple questions and I've got to go. Hey, Connie, can you give me the charger for this thing? My battery's dying a little bit. Excuse me just a second. Don't go anywhere, folks. All right. I'm just getting a little more to drink because my voice is shot. Question: if and when natural calamities hit, disaster management agencies find it hard to measure the loss of human lives in real time? Yeah. Well, you just answered your own question, Barun Chatterjee. No, that's not it. You just answered your own question. Hamas is putting out numbers with no possible way of determining whether or not those numbers are correct. And it's virtually impossible for those numbers to be correct or anywhere close to correct because, having been to a lot of wars, the amount of ordnance it would take to kill 15,000 people is far beyond what Israel has been using on Gaza, despite what you've seen the videos you've seen of everything blowing up in Gaza. People don't just stand out there on the roof, and say, "Kill me." They hide, and people are very resilient. They go down the basements, they hide, and so if the bombs start falling, most of the time there are not going to be big crowds of people that are running toward the bombs or running away. And for that reason, killing 15,000 people would take a lot more effort than what the IDF has put in heretofore. All right, so you just answered your own question. They can't do that. Thank you for praying for me and for the IDF. Yeah, nobody's going to check them anyway. What are your thoughts on the hostages waving at Hamas after being released? Well, the Stockholm Syndrome is a very real thing, no doubt, but it could very well be that they were told to wave, and they were like, "I'll do whatever I got to do to get out of here." We are hearing a lot more out of the hostages as time goes on, and it doesn't sound to me like they were very friendly with their captors at all. So I would say it's probably the latter rather than the former. What are your thoughts? Okay. Thank you, Etienne. Very kind. Bidenomics has resulted in rent being more than I make in a month. I'm sorry to hear that, Jake. Jake, maybe you need to look at moving somewhere else. There are a lot of people who, who just maybe labor under the impression that they absolutely have to stay where they are, and they couldn't move just because it's just not something their people do and not something their family would consider or ever considered. But there are lots and lots and lots of people who are moving specifically for the reason you just mentioned, Jake, that rent is too expensive in the place where they live. And you can go to a cheaper part of the United States, or you could go to El Salvador, for Pete's sake. You could go to Panama. You could go to, Armenia. There's lots of places you could go. And is it going to be difficult? Yes. Is it going to require restructuring your life somewhat? Absolutely. Coming from a guy who has done it a couple of times, I can tell you, you can do it. It is possible. Who was the ceasefire with? Well, it was with Hamas. They don't differentiate between Hamas in Gaza or Hamas in the West Bank or Hamas in Iraq or Syria or Lebanon. It's just Hamas. So they considered, for example, the shooting that took place down the street here to be a ceasefire violation. And those guys, and Hamas did claim that, so Hamas thinks so too. What's happening in Israel has nothing to do with prophecy, blah, blah, blah. I think Israel's water broke over birth pangs. No, you don't have to stay where you are. We moved to Panama because Obamacare was going to cost my family $17,000 a year. And I just was like, no, that's too much. I'm just not going to do that. So we left. That's not the only reason, but it's one of the reasons. Okay. All right, folks, I've got to run. I'm going to be getting a call here from the studio in just a minute. I appreciate you coming on and listening. Thank you, Ann. Very kind of you right at the last minute there. If you'd like to support my work, best way to do it probably is to go to the link tree, which has a list of all the different, PayPal and Venmo and things like that take a little less of a chunk than YouTube does. YouTube takes about 30%. Even Locals takes a pretty good chunk, 15% maybe. But if you want to support my work, you can support over on Locals, or you can go to the link tree, which Connie will probably put up here in just a second, and you can find ways to do that there. We will try to make the best use of it. We sent out over $6,000 last month. Did that include the hotel lady? Okay, yeah, sent out over $6,000 last month, and we actually should have sent out more, but I'm not going to try to do one for one. Like if we get $1,000 in it this month, I'm going to give $100 this month or something like that. We try to make the best use of what people donate through the lives here, and use it to help people. Like we're going to go get some candy to those kids down there because Kenneth wanted us to. But we may just have to save it up and do something really big, and you might be surprised. So God bless you all. Thank you very much. We have to pray real quick. Pregnant hostage update. There is no pregnant hostage. There's your update. And God bless you all. Okay, let's pray. Lord, thank you so much for the people that are watching, and pray that you would just work in their lives to work out your plan for them. We know that you have a plan for each and every one of us. We pray for Israel as it has to make very, very hard decisions. And we just ask that you would make those decisions easier by supernaturally moving civilians out of the way. We've heard from doctors and surgeons that you are supernaturally helping, causing bullets to turn when they shouldn't. And we know you have the power to do that. We ask, Lord, though, that you would just end this conflict. End it sooner rather than later. And I pray that the people here would see your hand at work and know that it was a miracle and cry out to you. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll see you again.